The official Android 16 is out, and Android 8 from Samsung and HyperOS 2 from Xiaomi have also adopted to it. iOS is now on iOS 26 Beta 5 with a total design rehaul. So I decided to compare these four mobile interfaces to each other. The Pixel 10 Pro on the right side is running the official version of Android 16, which is a bit different and lacks some features that the beta version has. The Flip 7 is running OneUI 8, the iPhone 16 Pro Max is running iOS 26 Beta 5, and the Xiaomi 15 is running HyperOS 2 Android 16 version. The first difference is the back gesture, where all Android phones can go back with a universal back gesture from the left or right side of their screen, whereas iOS 26 doesn't have this option, and in each app, the back gesture is different. The recent apps also have a similar gesture among the four phones. When it comes to recent apps, the layout is slightly different between the four phones. By default, Xiaomi puts the recent apps next to each other, whereas on the other phones, they are on top of each other. Also, OneUI is now more similar to the layout of iOS, whereas the Pixel version of Android 16 has kept the more separated apps next to each other layout. The closing animation of recent apps is also different, and I low-key like the iOS one where the apps go in different directions. Generally, my feeling working with these four systems is that HyperOS, iOS, and OneUI are more animation heavy, whereas the Pixel version of Android is rather straightforward, which is why sometimes it appears snappier. iOS 26 has this jelly Candy Crush effect when moving between screens in the quick settings. Xiaomi 15 has a simple scaling animation when you try to move the only screen in the quick settings. OneUI 8 has a wobbly animation when you try to stretch the quick settings. The Pixel has a simple animation where the tabs go on top of each other like a drawer. Let's move on to the customization. For Pixel, you can go to the wallpaper and style. My favorite feature is the easy access to the color palette, and I use that often whenever I want to see some change in my UI. You can also apply the theme to the icons as well. And as you can see, your icons will have a theme. I personally don't do it because then it is too confusing for me to find my apps. Going back to the settings, you can also change the color contrast. When going to the wallpaper section, there is some default selection, which I should admit is not great, and I usually have a hard time finding something that interests me. You can, of course, select your own wallpaper. Before that, you can adjust the wallpaper size and rotation, and you can also apply effects on it. For example, cinematic wallpaper. There are more options in the Android 16 beta version, but they are still not rolled out to the Android 16 official release. For OneUI 8, you can get a lot of customization options even without good luck. There is also a theme store where if you want to spend a bit of money, you can find some very interesting and creative themes. In the wallpaper section, you can change the color palette similar to the Google Pixel. You can also apply the palette to the app icons if you decide to do so, and as you can see here, the icons are going to have the same color as the one you selected on the palette. You can select from the default wallpapers or choose your own and apply the effects you want on it. I usually blur the background so the icons will be more visible, but there are other effects, and you can even give a shape to your background. iOS in the past couple of years has also tried to bring customization to the operating system. They started by letting users place the icons freely anywhere they want on the home screen, and in previous versions, they also added an option to change the color of the icons. For the same reason I mentioned before, I never do it since everything will look the same. You can also select a wallpaper. Fun facts, in the first version of the iPhone, you could not actually change the wallpaper if you remember. iOS also has a bit of a fat finger problem in their user interface, meaning that the buttons are too small to click. In iOS 26, I've noticed in many places they made the buttons much larger, but still things like this happen. Similar to the other two phones, you can also apply different effects on your wallpaper, but I often go with the blur effect. For Xiaomi HyperOS, when you click on the wallpaper section, it brings you the store with some Temu advertisements, which is a bit icky. At least, I can find a place to select your own wallpaper. Let me know down in the comments if it is just hidden somewhere. What I do instead is go to the gallery and select the picture I want to use as a background. You can also add effects like blur, lens, and glass, which makes the background a bit funky. Please also note that all 4 phones have tons of other customizations options in the settings. I only showcase the ones that were easily accessible. For iOS 26, I got this update that Apple Intelligence will summarize the notifications based on the category of the apps. There is also a new feature to turn on priority notifications. Both of these features are in beta. For accessing your notifications on Pixel, you can drag the toolbar from the right or left, but on the other 3 phones, you have to drag from the left side only. For going to quick settings on Pixel, you have 2 options. You can either drag down twice, or you can use 2 fingers to drag down, and sometimes using 2 fingers is better than just 1. On all the other phones, you have to drag from the right side to go to quick settings. The buttons are big and nice on Android 16 Pixel Edition. On the beta version, it is a bit different, and the buttons also have subsections, but we'll see if the official Android 16 version will look like that too or not. You can of course edit what you want to be included in your quick settings by using the edit button. The OneUI 8 looks more similar to iOS than to Android, I would say, but it looks sleek and I really dig the design. You can also edit the sections however you like and move them around if you want to. You can also swipe back and forth between the notification settings and the quick settings. The iOS 26 has 3 sections with a glass-looking design. I mean, it is called liquid glass for a reason. There's also a Candy Crush jelly animation when you try to switch between the pages. I like how the icons become bigger when you interact with them. And that's a good accessibility feature, especially on smaller phones. The Xiaomi version is rather simple and is similar to the previous versions of iOS, especially in the user interface and how the icons are shaped. Now, let's say you want to find an app. In all Android phones, you can swipe up to go to the apps and then use the search bar to search for your app. On OneUI, the search bar is on the bottom, which, in my humble opinion, should always be the case everywhere. iOS has a dedicated search button on the home screen. We now open Spotify and play some generic pop music, and before you ask, yes, I'm that basic. On Pixel, you don't have any dynamic island option, so you have to go to quick settings or notifications to interact with your music. I like the design of OneUI 8 and where the slider for the music is located, which makes it easily accessible. iOS has the classic dynamic island, and you can hold it to access the music quickly. On Xiaomi, similar to Android 16, you have to go to the quick settings to access the music, which is a bit surprising because almost all other Chinese systems have a version of Dynamic Island. Now let's go back to the lock screen and see how the music looks there. On Pixel, you have your music on top and the notifications below it. On OneUI 8, you have the Now bar, and you can switch between the Now bar and the Music bar. You can also make the music play in full screen if you wish to do so. On the iOS lock screen, you can also see the music in full screen with the album picture and interact with it. The Xiaomi version is rather simple, similar to the Android 16 Pixel version, and you can interact with a smaller box on top to play or pause your music or go to the next track. One important feature that all Android phones have and iOS lacks is the ability to have a split screen. This is a must-have feature, especially on larger phones, and I've been in so many situations where I needed to look at another app while interacting with one. Widgets are another thing that are looking even more similar to each other in the new version of these systems, especially if you look at OneUI, iOS, and HyperOS, where the weather widget almost looks identical. On the Pixel Android 16, however, the widgets still looks unique and different. The same goes for the weather app. HyperOS and iOS almost looks identical. OneUI 8's weather app looks very sleek, and Pixel has a more classic style. For AI, you can hold the power button on all 4 phones to access Gemini on Android phones and ChatGPT on iOS and interact with it. You can ask simple questions like what the weather is, or even use the AI as your therapist and trauma dump to it. All 4 phones also have their own default browser app, but I won't dig deep into that. What I want to talk about instead is the writing assist tool. This is, in my opinion, essential to any phone, and both iOS and OneUI supports it. You can select any text and it will show you options like summarization and proofreading. I use this feature daily, if not hourly, and as far as I know, Pixel and Xiaomi do not have it, but let me know if I'm wrong. The OneUI 8 feature is superior in my opinion because you can select any text in any app, for example in Reddit or YouTube comments, and have access to the same text features. Android phones have had Circle to Search for a year and a half already, where you can draw a circle and it will then search for the picture reverse Google search for you. iOS added an extended version of it in iOS 26. The difference is that you have to take a screenshot first and then select your subject. But on the other hand, the search is more interactive, and you can also use AI to ask questions about a particular scene. The camera apps are another main difference between them. The Pixel camera app takes great pictures, but on the other hand, it is rather limited and is more designed for point and shoot. Even something as simple as changing the shutter speed. In my opinion, the OneUI camera app is simply superior to any other app on the market right now. It is both intuitive and gives you tons of options. For example, you can take videos in log format and even have false colors and zebra for checking your exposure. Even my 2K Sony camera does not give me these options. iOS also has log, but the camera app, similar to Pixel, is very limited in functionality. In iOS 26, the camera app is more neatly designed. The settings are accessible by swiping from the bottom, and the options are mostly hidden. You can only see video and photo options by default. Xiaomi, like all the other Chinese brands, has as many features as possible packed into their camera app as well. The layout is very similar to OneUI 8, and you also get pro options as well as the ability to change between Leica Authentic and Leica Vibrant colors. As I mentioned, the official version of Android 16 lacks some features that the Android 16 beta has. If you want to see more, you can watch the comparison video of Android 16 beta versus Android 15 next. Thanks for tuning in to Tecmo, and I will see you in the next one.